Hello guys, welcome back to the second part on how to paint a red grief Dark Eldar. And now that the washes are dry, I'm going to start detailing the miniature. Now I recolored the eyes on white because I lost the effect on the wash, and then I'm going to use Druchi Violet to outline the eyes. This is done with the fine detail brush, and yeah, just applying a little bit of color to separate it from the skin. And now I'm going to use Wild Rider Red, which is a very bright, almost orange red, and I'm going to use it to edge highlight the armor. This is a little bit time-consuming step, but it's the most important, I think, for this color scheme, and it's the one that makes the armor really stand out. And for edge highlighting, I used a little bit of glaze medium to thin down the paint, just a little bit, just to use as a drying retarder for the paint to flow well and not to dry so much on the brush. Now that that's done, I'm going to use Fire Dragon Bright, and this I'm going to thin it down a little bit with glaze medium, the same as the previous color, and I'm going to start edge highlighting just the very sharpest edges of the armor, all of the corners and all of the parts that you want to pop a little bit. This is not so hard, it's the same as the previous step, and it's less time consuming because it's less area than the previous one. Now I'm pretty much done with the armor, and I'm going to start putting highlights to the skin with Palid Witch Flesh. This is thinned down with glaze medium and a little bit of water. Now this is not gonna cover too well in the first try, as you may be able to see here. The paint is not covering too well. That's why you have to go in with the second coat if possible. Oh, and I'm using a zero brush, which will be the equivalent of detail brush, I think. I like working with little brushes, even though paint dries faster on the tip of a thin brush. So you might prefer to have a little bigger brush. It all depends on how you like to paint. Now I'm using the white scar, very thin down, so it doesn't cover too well, and highlighting the upper parts of the skin. Now I'm going to highlight the flesh, the flayed flesh, with Cadian Fleshtone, I think is the name. Next I'm using the Kislev flesh for a second highlight. Try to cover a little less area than the previous one. And as a final highlight, I'm using Screaming Skull. So the miniatures, it's already looking pretty well. So you may want to drop your painting at this point, because it already looks pretty good in my opinion. But I'm still going to give it a couple more steps to finish it off. First, the hair, I have to highlight it. So I'm using Teclis blue, and with this color I'm highlighting all of the hair, individual hair strands of the miniature. I don't usually do dry brush parts like this anymore. I just go with the side of the brush and paint individual hair strands like that. And then I'm going to use Temple Guard blue, and I'm going to edge highlight the more sharpest curves on the hair and the most exposed to light. Now I'm going to use Ushabti bone to highlight the bone on the top of the head. You can see I made a mistake there, but I fixed it up off camera. And then I'm going to use Screaming Skull to highlight the very edges, the brightest parts of the bone. So there you go. Now I'm going to highlight the armor, the suit, and I'm going to use Eshin Gray to start edge highlighting the sharpest parts of the armor. Also, I'm edge highlighting other parts of the armor that seem to reflect light. Maybe if you hold the miniature behind, under your overhead light, you can see some parts where the miniature shines a little bit. You can highlight those parts and all of the edges. Next, Dawnstone. This is going to be applied only on the sharpest edges and selected parts that really stand out when you hold your miniature under the light. It may not be too necessary to highlight this, the black armor, if you're going for a tabletop standard, but I did, just because it gives it that much more depth. Now I'm going again with the Vallejo Model Air Silver. I'm going to dry brush it over the metal areas just to bring a little bit of the detail back. And I'm using the gold to bring back a little bit of the shine on the armor. On the shard pistol. Now, I was forgetting this step. I'm using Skrag brown to edge highlight the leather areas on the pouch on the back of the miniature. And Balor brown on the very sharpest edges. I made a couple mistakes here, but I fixed them up on the off camera. And this is the finished product of this tutorial. I hope you like it. I really enjoyed making this tutorial. I was excited all the way making this tutorial, and I hope you enjoy it too. Thank you very much for you guys who watch my tutorials and leave comments and subscribe. I really appreciate it, and please stay tuned and leave your comments and suggestions. And please feel free to ask for a painting tutorial. I will comply if I can. But for now, I'll be out for maybe a couple of weeks because I'm really busy at school. But I'll be back for more. Please bear with me. I'll see you on the next video.